I feel like when we're ready, the universe meets us, and it's that exciting curiosity, that playful curiosity that we really go on this treasure hunt of remembering what it is that is our divine nature. And so I feel like when we're on this journey, different clues start to appear.
Welcome to the Angelic Frequency Podcast. We are your hosts, Christina Aroche
and Luisa Vélez, and today we had a beautiful conversation with Emily Ghosh Harris. She's an intuitive healer, founder of Soul Media, and a certified galactic astrologer. It was a fascinating conversation. We talked about motherhood and healing music and heart-led living. We're sure you're going to love it as much as we did. She's an intuitive healer, founder of Soul Media, and a certified galactic astrologer. It was a fascinating conversation. We talked about motherhood and healing music and heart-led living. We're sure you're going to love it as much as we did. So let's dive in.
Hi, Emily.
Hello.
We're so excited to have you on here. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
We are so excited about our conversation today. We've been really looking forward to this conversation. There's so many interesting ways the conversation could go. So anyway, let's dive in, and maybe for our listeners who may or may not be familiar with you, if you can tell us a little bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, she of many names. I am an intuitive guide and a sound facilitator and a galactic astrologer. And I'm also the founder of Soul Media, which is a business and branding portal of expansion for light workers and conscious companies. And so, my path has taken me from actually corporate America was where kind of I started, where I was working really around the clock. I was climbing the corporate ladder. I was really in a place of burnout. And, from that journey of like really ego death, really was a dark night of the soul. And from that place, really began to peel back the layers and follow a place that was really more in line with my unique soul signature. And I feel like we all have a soul signature that we come here to share and to express. And from a musical standpoint, it's really our home frequency. It's that note that we come here to ignite and to share. I feel like we're all just a unique sheet of music. You can think of one's blueprint in this way. And for me, it is about really removing those discordant frequencies that get in the way of us playing the music that we came here to share and express. And what's interesting is that I heard this the other day, and it so deeply resonated, which is that when we're out of tune with the music that we came here to share, the entire universe is out of tune.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And I really truly believe that is true.
Yeah. I love that analogy with music. I feel like that's so beautiful and so powerful. And although I personally could not play an instrument to save my life, but one of the things that it reminds me of too is this idea of harmony, and how when we are in our frequency that we're meant to express and we connect with other people who are in that, then there's this harmonious energy that's created and amplified. If you think about like a choir or like a band or anything where there's multiple instruments playing, and if you isolated the instrument on its own, it's kind of like, that's really nice and beautiful, but then you combine different ones together and it just creates this whole other experience. And that's what came through as you were sharing that. So I just really love how that connects to music. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And if you think of our universe and the multiverses, it is just this beautiful symphony. And I love, the show and this mission of really connecting people with their angelic, family, their guides, our higher self, because really when we are able to attune to that, when we come into maybe raising our vibration, it's just like a radio station, is that when we're able to attune to that, it's all of a sudden it comes into clear focus, and we're able to have access to communicate in a way that it was always there, but maybe just previously we weren't attuned to that radio station.
So I'm curious now, on that beautiful note, to create a bridge between your corporate America life, climbing the corporate ladder, and how do you find galactic astrology? How does that happen?
I mean, again, I feel like when we're ready, the universe meets us, and it's that exciting curiosity, that playful curiosity, that we really go on this treasure hunt of remembering what it is that is our divine nature. And so I feel like when we're on this journey, different clues start to appear. And so galactic astrology, like many things, like remembering and learning about the chakras and learning about our light body or Merkaba, were these things that really were a part of my journey of awakening and remembering, the light within that we each are and hold. And so galactic astrology also was exciting to me because it was just this idea, or that we're so much bigger than perhaps what the programming might have suggested to us at one time, that we really truly are multidimensional beings. And perhaps we have a sense of this, is that we're, connected beyond just this earth realm. And so galactic astrology helps us to really connect with perhaps our soul's journey throughout the cosmos.
Amazing. I love that. And there's two things that come up as you share that. And I'm curious, first is if you could define or differentiate, how do you differentiate between what maybe people normally hear as just regular astrology and galactic? Is there a difference? And if so, what is it? And then the second part to that is, in your exploration as you were on that path of exploring that, were there any specific guides or beings that came through? Because, that I feel is another, also, at least in my experience, I associate that with kind of like I call it celestial beings and these energies that are from a different higher dimension. And so I'm curious how that has supported or been a part of your journey as you were exploring that side of things.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. So, the difference I feel in astrology, just like every kind of modality, is like opening up and expanding at this time as we're moving to really the age of Aquarius, and things are, becoming really more multidimensional in every facet. And so just an example of this, like astrology, you could say it's been a science and an art for eons of years, but we're just still beginning to recognize additional planetary bodies and asteroids. And so our consciousness is becoming attuned and able to, recognize and expand. And so there's a lot of things that are exciting and opening up. And I feel like galactic astrology kind of coming online. It's been online for a while, but I feel like there's more of a deepening of exploration at this time, is because we're ready for it. And we're wanting to know this deeper connection that is a part of us. And so astrology looks at the planetary bodies, and galactic astrology looks at some of the fixed star systems like Sirius, and looks at the Pleiades star systems, and looks at our Arcturus and the galactic center and these higher points of cosmic intelligence. And so it really looks at our relationship to these fixed stars. And so to answer the second part of your question of how we can start to work with this knowledge, is the archetypical realm of these fixed stars and the energy signatures of these places that perhaps our soul on some way, shape, or form remembers. And so it's a connecting into that energy, whether it's Sirius, which is a fixed star and realm that's associated with deep wisdom, with healing, with a calm energy and presence. And so we can call upon that energy to work with in our everyday lives. And so we can begin to connect in to these points of remembering our gifts, remembering our soul's journey, remembering who we are at a more broader, expanded, exalted sense of being.
That's amazing. I love that so much.
That is incredible. Yeah. I can't wait to do a session myself. I have a very deep, yeah, I have a connection to the stars that, so I find this especially fascinating. So, what, just as you would work with, I guess, past lives healing, I'm guessing that rediscovering your soul origin must be an incredible experience for anyone doing this work with you.
It really is. And this is a huge part of it. I love that you bring this through, because part of it is incredibly healing. It's not only that we're looking to remember some of our gifts and to further activate them in this lifetime, but it's just that we go through different cycles. And so we may have remembered a very similar cycle or timeline when we're a part of another fixed star system, or another timeline, whether that's a past life healing, which we might be very familiar with, or it's something like a galactic astrology reading. It's the ability to access something that perhaps we're ready. It's time for us to look at and to heal and to integrate some of those memories, because there's different wars or there's different polarities that we've healed and other timelines that Earth, this realm, is mirroring that in a way. And so we're able to learn the lessons that we did and kind of bring those through in a way that it creates a really greater sense of not only healing, but remembering who we truly are.
That's so
That's wonderful.
powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So this is then where when people talk about star seeds, they're talking about that origin with these star systems that you talked about, right? And then is that then also connected to the beings of like Arcturians or Pleiadians, and that like that is all connected to these star systems that you talked about, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
amazing. Another question that I had, I was curious, in traditional astrology, we're looking at our birth, right? Like your what time you were born, when, all that, and then we're looking at the planets related to when you were born. Is that the same for galactic astrology? Are you looking at those star systems in relation to when you're born? Is there an impact with regards to when you're born, or is that separate and you approach it a different way?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's exactly the same. So you're looking at your time of birth, your place of birth, and your date of birth, of course, and that relationship to where the fixed stars were, in relation to your birth. And so, the difference is that we're looking at the fixed stars as opposed to, the main astro bodies.
Right. Okay. I love that.
And I'm so curious, but I'm sure there's many people that perhaps are not relating so much, or don't have as much context about different galactic star origins. Can you give us a little crash course in what are the main star systems and where do we come from ultimately, and what is that connection to Earth, and why are those souls that come from different systems, what are we doing here right now on Earth? Why is there so many of us right now here on Earth?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. I mean, the first part, and I wanted to go back to Christina, your question, which ties into this question that you brought through, which is for people that are curious, they can go to galacticastrochart.com. Where I studied is with Julia Balaz, and she has a resource that's free, that's incredible, that you can, enter in your birth details and find out. You can actually print out your galactic astro chart. And so you can start to, get a sense of these galactic connections that each of us have. And then perhaps if you're called, if it resonates, do a deeper dive and inquiry. But to answer your question, there are so many fixed stars. There's so many, but there are some kind of predominant ones that show up a lot in readings, in starseed readings. The Palladian energy, the Andromedan energy, the Syrian energy, the Arcturian energy, the royal stars, these higher points of galactic consciousness, like the galactic center, the Shapley attractor, the great attractor. Lyran is another really big connection. So some of these star seeds maybe sound familiar, right? Like we've heard the terminology. Orion is actually another one. And the reason why is because a lot of in our Milky Way galaxy, we've traveled through this universe and many of us perhaps beyond. And so why are we on Earth at this time? Well, that's such a big question. It's such a big question, but there is such a profound nature to what we are experiencing here on Earth at this time, and in terms of ascension and raising of consciousness and healing the planet, that we may have a cellular remembrance of in past timelines. And so a lot of us perhaps incarnated in because we have been a part of these missions and other timelines, and that we really wanted to volunteer to be a part of this, not only for our own soul's growth and activation and expansion, but also to be able to share our gifts and shine our light in the unique and radiant way that only each and every one of us can.
That's beautiful. I just out of my selfish curiosity, is there one of these families? I keep getting carrions, but I'm not sure. I think it's like a bird-like being. Yeah. And I keep just hearing that and being called to that, but there's not a lot of information about them out there.
Yeah, what's coming through when you're sharing that is the blue avian.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And there is some information out there. I don't know a lot about the blue avians. It's pretty rare from what I've encountered in galactic astrology readings, but there is a profound teacher quality in the blue avian archetype that I've seen and witnessed. So, and also a connection to Lyra star system. So, yeah.
Interesting. Thank you for for giving me that little insight there. I want to go back to Christina's question perhaps for a second, talking about those beings that are perhaps relevant in this context, and how do you experience and interact with those celestial beings?
Well, that's a beautiful question. And I feel like you both are such way sharers of this in your own way, is that when we're connecting, the trust process of trusting that we can connect, that we do have the ability. And then also discernment is another big part of the spiritual path of really discerning energy and being in our heart space. And again, trusting that we have the ability, if it's our intention, to connect. And again, just kind of looping back to like the beginning of our conversation of attuning to a radio station, if you will. It's like really finding that frequency or that station when we're able to connect to different channels. It's just that there are so many different channels, so many beings that are a part of this reality. And so we can attune and choose how we direct our consciousness. And so that is a really big, I feel like, lesson in and of itself is to be able to direct one's consciousness and to really recognize that we are the choosers of our choices and that we are directing our consciousness, and whether we're wanting to connect with our star family or wanting to connect with angels, or we're wanting to connect with our guides or our higher self, is that we're finding that attunement through our own unique process, our own, whether it's meditative or whether it's something of getting into the heart space and getting into that frequency. I feel like we all have our own unique way of doing that. But really, it really begins with the ability to trust ourselves.
I love that. And to me, it sounds very similar to just kind of in my work, obviously talking a lot about angels, and the stories that I hear quite often is that people feel drawn to the angels. And so they start trying to connect with them and all of that. So it sounds to me like similarly when it comes to exploring star seeds and our star origin and connecting with these beings, it's something that you're drawn towards, and then layering on top of that, choosing, like you said, like directing our consciousness towards that specific thing. Because also, very similarly, hearing and personally experiencing it too, where there is so much out there and there are so many beings. And sometimes it's like, who do I talk to and who do I call on? Because there's so many out there that are available to us. And instead of getting overwhelmed based on what you shared and how I've perceived it too, it's kind of allowing ourselves to be guided and trusting ourselves, like you said, and just allowing it to be whatever it is in that moment. And then it could shift and change over time, or that just might be where you deepen in your connection.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, love that.
yeah.
That's great. I just heard you say a couple of things about more of the practical aspect of how do you establish this connection and attune yourself to that frequency, that can look like meditation or dropping to your heart space. Can you perhaps tell us a little bit more about that practical aspect, and how does that look like, for example, for you or for your clients, and how do you keep that connection going on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I love that question. And I will share very transparently that it's changed since becoming a mother. And I think this is a good lesson because we all go through different seasons and different chapters. I almost a year ago became a mother, and it's an amazing journey, and it changes everything. Just like the cliche, it's true. And so you have to learn how to cultivate different spiritual practices. It's a great challenge, really, because we'll go through different phases, each of us, of like something that's really working for us. Maybe it's meditation, or maybe it's breath work, or maybe it's sound healing. These are all modalities that I practice on a regular basis. But maybe something isn't working the way that it used to work, or we have to adapt and modify it. It's like really being in that, again, playful curiosity and making our practice more of like a ceremony as opposed to something that feels like a chore or something that we have to do. It's like now I really realize the beauty of even having a small pocket of time that I can create spaciousness and drop in. And, it's no accident that all of the teachers of enlightenment talk about the same things of mantras and mudras and meditation and sound and light. Like these basic things are really how we create greater light and enlightenment in the body. And so, like, one thing that I've learned through my journey is the importance of consistency. And it doesn't have to necessarily be hours and hours of meditation, though that's wonderful and beautiful if you can happen and you're feeling called. But it might be 9 minutes of just dropping in and breathing and having a mantra that you're working with, or just a little sound practice if you have some sound instruments in your home. And that's something that I recommend to clients and something that I practice as well.
Yeah, you're definitely speaking. Like we both have
We
young
relate.
kids also, so we can definitely relate to that. that was definitely a shock for me with my first, how much my practice changed from before when I wasn't a mom to becoming a mom. And it was just like, you just have to. And I remember at the beginning, it was like, I had a feeling as though, oh, like maybe I don't have as much of a strong connection anymore because I'm not practicing the same way that I used to. And I had to shift that and change that and recognize and see that it's not about that practice served me then. And now it was about shifting and changing what was meant to serve me in this moment. So definitely, I feel like we both can very much relate to
Oh,
that. And I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned and kind of shift gears just a little bit into sound medicine and kind of going into that because that just sounds it just seems so like when you were saying that I felt so it's like something resonating within me even though I haven't explored it too much. I've been to a few like sound baths and things like that. So I'm curious if you could share a little bit more about how you perceive sound medicine in terms of how, like, obviously there's a frequency of vibration when we're playing sound. So how does that play a role in our attunement, in our healing, in our growth? Like, and how do you use that in your work in general?
yeah. Oh, I love this question. I love exploring sound because we truly are sound, light, and plasma. Like that's how we're comprised. And we think of ourselves really in this physical vessel, but we're really energy. We're really energy programmed. And so sound can help us remember that on a vibrational level and also help us attune on a cellular level. And so what I really believe is that we're remembering this ancient medicine that so many ancient cultures and traditions like really practice on a regular basis. Like the Egyptians had these resonant sound chambers where they were chanting, and all of these ancient traditions that would, like Buddhist monks that would chant and work on their chanting just like one note. Some monks spent years of perfecting, and they were recognizing the power of the power of the voice to heal. And so there's so much research that's coming forward right now about the power of sound, and we're actually seeing how, like, more seeing this more in the mainstream of seeing sound and how it's being used as medicine. I really feel like everybody's going to at some point in time have like some sound instruments that they're using on a regular basis because it's so profound and healing. And one of the most healing instruments is really our voice. So whether we're speaking or whether we're mantraing or we're chanting or just going through, and that can be incredibly healing. And it can help us down regulate the nervous system. And the thing that I've recognized in my own healing journey about sound is it has the ability to bypass the thinking mind. Whereas a lot of modalities, we kind of stay stuck in the mind and like repeating patterns. But sound actually helps bring us into the heart and bring us into the emotions. And what I've found and what I've heard through facilitating sound sessions is that oftentimes like an emotion will like rise up to the surface and be able to be seen and witnessed, and perhaps like emotion that we haven't had access to that's been suppressed, and sound will awaken that, will bring it up to the surface in a way that can be really a powerful release and healing. I just find that there's so many different ways that we're beginning to remember and work with sound.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's,
That's
yeah, that
beautiful.
reminded me of an experience that I had, not with sound, but with breath work, how it seems very parallel, how with certain breathing techniques, it can unlock things within us. And so I've had an experience with that with breath work, but really amazing to hear how sound can do that too. Do you use singing bowls or what, or like, what do you use when it
Yeah,
comes to sound medicine?
I mean, lots of different instruments,
Okay.
sound bowls, gong, flutes, Tibetan bowls, crystal pyramid, and which is an Asian harp, and some chimes. So for anybody that's like feeling that curiosity, it's like just exploring what interests, what instruments are starting to light you up, or even appear on your radar. We know when we put it out there in the universe, or we have that curiosity, oftentimes like, oh, all of a sudden I saw this sound healing down the street from me, and I'm just kind of following the breadcrumbs, so to speak, of what lights us up. And that's been my journey with sound for sure.
What's coming up for me from a previous conversation we had with a guest that deals with highly sensitive individuals, and how much music and sound and frequency helps facilitate some of those sessions that she does. I don't remember specifically what it was, 280, I can't really remember, but how much of an impact that has on a highly sensitive person, because we are so wide open to the world, and we can hold on to a lot of emotion, and we can hold on to a lot of things and be impacted by the external stimulus in such a way that those specific frequencies are deeply healing.
Absolutely. I love that you bring this through. And I think it's really important because we are all highly sensitive beings. And we are so sensitive, and we're living in such a busy and noisy world. And sometimes we don't even really think about all the frequencies that we're kind of interfacing with, whether it's Wi-Fi, or whether it's just noise in our environment, or things like this can be sort of chaotic frequency, even just high loud noises, if you will, or if you're working in an environment where you're around a lot of different people, that's a lot of energy. And so you're absolutely right. It's like these healing frequencies, whether they're angelic frequencies, or 432 is a very popular sound healing frequency, but 580, you mentioned, there's so many of them, but they can help bring us back into greater coherence.
And so what I'm hearing is that different frequencies bring different types of healing. And why is that different, I guess, is my question. What's the difference between those different frequencies, and what are they activating?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I don't know the research behind that. My felt sense and just intuitive sense is that different parts of our bodies, like physical, spiritual, emotional bodies, respond to different frequencies in different ways. And that also because we all, like when we were beginning this conversation, are a unique soul signature, meaning that our unique symphony is completely different from each other's. There's commonalities, of course, and we're all part of this greater symphony, but we are a unique symphony of cells, of bones, of muscle, of tissue, and creating, and each of those, by the way, have a very unique resonance that can actually be measured. And so the way that interfaces with a sound tone or a frequency is going to be uniquely different. And it's probably going to be uniquely different even from day to day, or from moment to moment, because who are from day to day on a cellular level, our cells are turning over, our body is changing. So it's a very fascinating question that you're asking. And I don't think the science or the research has like fully even caught up to why that is, or how it affects different parts of our body in different ways. They probably have noticed some trends of like certain tones or frequencies help with certain different things, or like binaural beats does this, like entrainment and things like that. But it's a completely evolving science.
Right. Just fascinating. I wanted to now sort of connecting the dots between galactic astrology, sound healing, and now going to the business side of things, right? And kind of where we started, because I see all of this work at the end of the day, and just finding your soul's blueprint and your mission and what you came here to do, and doing all of this healing work can potentially activate a lot of things in our day-to-day life to connect with that highest version of ourselves, or to that highest timeline, I believe you called it. I saw it somewhere. So how does that whole work connect or interconnect with the consulting side of things that you do for people?
Okay, I love this question because really and truly, like a business, I think of it as playing the music that we came here to share and express. Is if we get something like a download to create a business has its own unique consciousness. And so we're stewards of that consciousness. We're co-creating with that consciousness, and we're evolving through that co-creation. And so we're constantly growing and evolving, and that consciousness of our business or whatever it is that is our devotional path is growing and evolving in a unique way, and they're interfacing and co-creating together. And so that's a huge aspect of why we're called or guided to create something that's on our heart to do. Sometimes there is something that's maybe getting in the way of playing the music that we came here to share and express, because also our business or whatever it is that is our devotional song, whether it's starting a podcast or whether it's creating content and, sharing your unique perspective, it takes courage and it takes trust and all of these ingredients that we're talking about. A lot of times it's that journey inward of truly knowing yourself and removing any of those discordant frequencies so that you're able to really fully play out the exact tone, the exact rhythm, the exact resonance that you came here to be and to express. And of course, the entire universe is affected and impacted by you being in that place of embodiment of playing and sharing. It's so beautiful. And so these modalities, whether it's sound healing or whether it's galactic astrology that helps us to get in touch with our gifts and to remember that our multidimensional nature, these are all different aspects that help us really just to go in to know ourselves at the very core and that very intimate and embodied way of being able to really say, who am I? What am I here to do? What is it that I deeply desire to share and to express, and have the courage to do so?
Yeah.
I love how you shared the creation of a business as a co-creation and as its own consciousness, and how we're here to steward that. I think that's such a powerful way of thinking about it. And to me, it brings through this deep level, like a deeper level of responsibility in a way where it's kind of like, I'm here, I'm choosing to do this. I was chosen to do this and to bring through whatever that mission is. It just kind of, it's hard for me to explain, but it just feels like it deepens it in some way. You know what I mean? And that feels really powerful, really grounded, especially I think for anyone who maybe is starting off their business or thinking about it or in the beginning stages, thinking of it in that way. I feel it's very empowering. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it truly is. And another aspect that just came through as you were sharing is just that life is, of course, the ultimate teacher and guru. And our businesses can also be a very divine mirror of creation and how we're creating our reality, because they can show us kind of where our belief system is and be a reflection of that, and not in a way of judgment at all. It's really just of anything in life, like whatever we're doing. Like, this is one of the biggest things that I've learned, is to just really let go of the judgment and just get excited of like, oh, okay, I'm playing this game, and what is this game mirroring back to me at this moment? How can I learn the rules of the game and learn how I'm creating? I'm learning that, for example, okay, just give like an actual practical example of this is like content creation of like, oh wow, I'm not feeling very magnetic in my content creation, for example. It's okay, well, how can I begin to feel more magnetic myself in my energy? Because your content is just a reflection of your energy. How can I really pour in? And this is like a big act of self-love, self-honoring. What is it that I want to share, and releasing any judgment or any places and spaces of needing to be validated. This is a huge part of, I feel like, light workers stepping out on each of our unique paths, because perhaps it is non-traditional. Perhaps you came here to share something that not everyone else is sharing. And in fact, you did, because we need each of every one of our perspectives. And so there's a big aspect in invitation to really grow in our self-love and our self-appreciation. And that's a huge part of our devotional song here.
Oh my gosh, so huge. Yes, 1000% yes. I've been doing this for over 8 years. And yeah, it's like exactly everything that you just mentioned. I'm like, yep, yep, yep. I experienced that how many times, and just that journey of personal growth that is required in entrepreneurship and in growing your business and in showing up in that, like you mentioned, that song that we're here to play. Like it does really require that. And it's, to me, in my opinion, one of the fastest paths to personal development and self-awareness and all that, because it's going to ask you to step into that. There's no walking around it when you're in that, I feel like, in my personal experience. And a question that came up as you were sharing, that I'm curious what you would say to someone who maybe is in a place right now where they're maybe exploring their spiritual path, they're exploring their gifts, they're kind of in this space where they know maybe that where they are right now isn't their purpose, it's not their thing, but they don't actually know what that song is yet. They don't actually know what they're meant to do yet. What would you say to someone who's in that position in terms of their next steps, or what they can explore, or any advice or guidance for someone in that position?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love this question. And the first thing that comes through is around not taking it so seriously, because it is a game and we can play it how we desire to play it. And here's what I mean by that. Okay. Like for so many years of my life, I have held the belief, and this has been one of the hardest beliefs to unwind, which is I have to work hard in order to be successful. And my dad was an immigrant from Calcutta, India, and he worked extremely hard. And there's so much beauty in that. And like, I wanted to rewire and create neural pathways that allow me to connect with the belief and the reality that I get to be in my highest joy and excitement. I get to be living from a place of authentic expression, and that gets to be abundant. And I get to receive, and but also blesses those that I am fortunate to work with as well. So rewiring the beliefs is important, and starting with playful curiosity, because you don't have to know everything in order to get started. You, just like we were talking about earlier, have to be open and receptive to receiving, because sometimes we feel like we have to do it all ourselves. But just know that you do get to receive, and you're co-creating with the universe, with your guides, with your angelic team. So part of it, like when I was leaving corporate America, I was like at a very, I was global director of marketing, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is it gonna even look like to start a business and leave this behind? And what I did was I got up every morning at the same time, and I would go on a long walk or jog along the water. And that was my time when I was connecting specifically with my spirit team. And they were helping me with downloading like what it would look like. And every day I would get clues and I would draw them, write them down in my journal. And I was dedicated to showing up. And I think that's a key. We have to be dedicated and consistent to showing up to the universe. We have to be willing to receive and open to receiving. And we have to trust in ourselves and taking that action. Because another thing that I was doing at that time was I was really believing that this was the foundation that I was receiving of my business. I got the logo, like drew it out. Okay, this is what the services would look like. Drew that out. And I believed it. So I was taking action on that belief because I was trusting myself. And so it's just those ingredients, whatever it is, of really allowing yourself to be guided, because the devotional song comes through like this soft guidance. It's not like this egoic, like you have to do this. It's just more of this softening and listening and being willing to be courageous and take some risks and steps outside of the box. And from there, the staircase, so to speak, begins to really crystallize and appear.
And it's so that resonates so much first. And it's incredible how we've been talking about this in the podcast. It's that muscle faith, right? Is the faith muscle, I'm sorry, is that a trust that when you start taking action and then showing up for yourself and trusting that intuition and those very subtle downloads sometimes, trusting that things just get exponentially faster and easier, and they're just divinely guided in a way that it's even unexpected and maybe even scary because it's too much too fast, but just trusting the process and that everything's unfolding how it's supposed to unfold because it's aligned with your soul purpose, with your mission and what you're here to do. So taking the leap. I love your idea of the game because it puts you on a very different headspace and it gives you a completely different perspective. When you're looking at it from the perspective of the chessboard and how you're just moving pieces and this is not happening to me, but for me. And whatever this is right now is just one piece of the puzzle that's going to get me to eventually where I need to go and where I need to be. So then there's that sort of healthy detachment from things in a way that allows you to trust and move through life with more peace and just take action more confidently because you know you're supported and guided and you know where you're going. So it's not so scary anymore, right? So to take those steps. So I love the idea of the game in that sense, but because you remove yourself from it and then you're not so emotionally engaged and you don't get hung up in the challenges or perhaps the negative aspects or the fear, which is ultimately what holds people back from pursuing those dreams and taking those steps.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's so true because we really can let go of, the self-criticism or the judgment, because really it gets to be exciting of like, what is being mirrored to me in this moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Something else that I really liked was how what does that look like, and receiving those downloads and carving time for yourself to really listen. A walk outside is a great way to do that. Are there any other very effective ways that you found or that you advise your clients to receive those guides and that intuition?
Yeah, well, I mean, listening to your show, both of you have so many great suggestions and tools for working with us. And the thing that I think is fascinating is that we all like receive in unique ways. And so we have to just learn what it is for each of us of the way that we're able to work with our higher self or our angelic team. Or for me personally, I get a lot of pictures and images. And so I'll draw actually pictures. For me, like the drawings are really, really powerful. But I also encourage clients to work with automatic writing and to work with even voice recording a voice note of like what you're receiving, because these are all different ways. And for each of us, it's going to be slightly different. But I think one of the key ingredients is to set aside that time of spaciousness where you are like devoted to connecting and receiving the messages. So that's, yeah.
I love that. And such powerful wisdom that you shared. And especially, yeah, I was gonna say as you were sharing about that kind of guidance and advice for someone who's in that position, wanting to step into something more, not knowing how or what or whatever, everything that you were saying, I was like, oh my gosh, people are gonna love this. This really resonates, and I feel like a lot of listeners are going to really feel that, and it's gonna land with them. And so, on that note, I would love for you to share where people can connect with you and learn more about you, because I feel like there's been so much amazing things that we've touched on, and there's so much that you offer and share that I think would be so helpful for people. So where can people connect with you, Emily?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you both so much. This has been such an amazing conversation, and you two are incredible hosts and guides and teachers. And so I love all the weavings that we went through in this conversation. I feel like I could talk to both of you for hours. So thank you. And yeah, my website, my personal website is emilyghoshharris.com. And so probably the best way to connect if somebody is feeling guided is probably Instagram is where I'm on the most. And that's the same as Emily Ghosh Harris is my Instagram handle. And then I also have a podcast where I interview, spiritual way sharers like yourself. And that's called the Soul Collective.
Amazing. We will definitely have those links in the show notes below this episode. So, for those of you who are interested, definitely go and check that out. But just want to say once again, Emily, thank you so much for being here with us today. This was such an amazing conversation. I totally agree that I feel like we could go on for hours and hours because it's so great. So many amazing things to explore. But once again, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. This is so great.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was absolutely fascinating, and I know our listeners are going to love it and are going to be so curious to reach out and connect with you as well. Thank you for all that you shared, for your time, especially with a little one. We know it's not easy, so thank you so much for carving time for us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Amazing. All right. We will speak to you very soon. Bye.